Welcome to 5 Minutes with Phil. I think that Reddit is one of the most interesting sites on the internet, but I find myself growing increasingly tired of the mob mentality that I see on there. People on that site clearly deem themselves to be superior to those on other sites like Tumblr and Facebook, yet they are just as susceptible to the same hive mind mob mentality, which in a way makes them stupider. All it takes is for a post to reach the front page, and overnight that belief is suddenly accepted as the truth, and is to be tirelessly brought up whenever even remotely relevant to any other topic on the site that is discussed over the following weeks. American politics is the best example of the mob mentality. You will never see positive posts for one side, while you will only see positive posts for the other. Which is fine for entertainment, I guess, but it doesn't help you to understand what's going on. At least with British politics, everybody hates everybody else equally. And as a British person, I've seen a recent trend of people hating England for its history of slavery and imperialism, and, as if on cue, I have begun receiving angry comments on my YouTube page feeling justified in attacking me because clearly this was all my fault. Prince Philip's appearance has been the flavour of this week, even though the guy's looked like that since I was born. Another hive mind attitude I've seen is to do with IQ, which you'd think would be just a thing, but the internet has transformed it into a hated thing. I believe this stemmed from I Am Very Smart, a subreddit I quite liked where they'd post cringy comments from people who clearly deemed themselves as very smart. And while I agree with their attitude in theory, as with everything on Reddit, I think this subreddit's influence reached a little bit too far. Yes, bragging about a high IQ is silly, because it means nothing on its own. If you think you're smart, then you do something with it, and then you brag about that instead. Add to that how Reddit darling Stephen Hawking himself poo-pooed the idea of an IQ score, and suddenly it's like we have scientific evidence that the mere mention of IQ is reason enough to be attacked. A lot more than I think it deserves to be, at least. So perhaps because of that, and to spite Reddit, in this video I'll be talking about IQ. I've even done an IQ test, and yes, I'll be sharing my IQs with you. Yes, IQs. Because despite so much talk about IQ and so many people bragging about theirs, I think I might be the only person on the internet to have bothered going out and doing a proper Mensa IQ test, since for all the bragging I've seen online, they all omit one incredibly important detail about the process. A bit of background. As a child, I liked puzzle books. Now these puzzle books were always about a group of children solving puzzles in some ruins in the heart of a jungle somewhere, and each page was beautifully decorated. I loved the adventure, the challenge, and the mystery. Most of these books were fairly easy, but I had one that was hard as balls. On the back of it said that it was sponsored by Mensa or something like that, and I remember I asked my mum about that organisation and she said it was a group for smart people. And as a 10-year-old I was like, oh, like me? To which she responded, no, Philip, it's for really smart people. So that's how I found out about it, and why I wanted to find out what my IQ was. And it was nice to finally get around to doing the IQ test because it served as closure to one of life's little side quests. I did this like 10 years ago. It wasn't just the other day because I was running out of ideas for this series or anything. First of all, IQ depends on age. A 10-year-old with an IQ of 160 is not the same as a 20-year-old with an IQ of 160. The 20-year-old would wreck the 10-year-old, since it's all to do with your score relative to an average person of your age. You might think this is obvious, but it doesn't stop newspapers from posting stories about a 3-year-old with an IQ higher than Einstein's or whatever. I'm not sure how it works once you become an adult, but if you get an IQ high enough to get into Mensa, then you're part of the club for life, even if you then immediately suffer severe brain damage and spend the rest of your life with an IQ of 70. So yeah, I booked the test. In England, this comes to a city near me once or twice a year. It was hosted on the top floor of a university building, and I guess I failed the first test because I got lost in that building trying to find the right room. You then go into the room with everybody, and the host is somebody who's already in Mensa. Mine was a retired teacher who said she didn't want to brag about her IQ, but then quickly revealed it was over 160. You sit down and turn the pages of a book when told to every minute or so. On each page is about 6 questions, which means you have about 10 or 15 seconds to answer each of them. That's really what it comes down to. You're so time constrained that you've got to go with your gut feeling rather than actually working it out and being sure about each and every answer that you put down. I ended up guessing about half of mine. It's multiple choice. Towards the end of the tests, the questions get increasingly difficult and you get a few more seconds per question. I remember the one at the end being a ridiculous paragraph that no person could possibly answer unless they had a notepad in about half an hour. Something about boats that have 2 captains and 3 second in command, 2 with wigs that work 5 days a week, but if it's on a cruise for 15 days but excluding the Tuesdays, then which captain would be most likely to wear a wig on a Saturday? You know, like so many variables and so many things to store in your mind as you're trying to work it out that you'd have to be kind of smart to do it. I'm pretty sure that everybody guesses that one. And you do 2 of these tests. The first is meant to be fair regardless of your language and involves shapes and logic. They say you can't practice these to get better, but I think doing a few practice ones does help. The second test is to do with the English language, with questions like, if cat is like grass, then sand is like what? And then 4 random words, and you've got to figure out which is most similar to the first example. I'm pretty sure that wasn't the entire test, but that's all I remember now. One person in the room had accidentally written their answers in the wrong booklet, so that's one person who won't be getting into Mensa anytime soon. The whole thing takes about an hour, and then you go home and a month or so later you get a letter like this through the post telling you whether you're amazing or not. And here's the thing I have never seen mentioned in any brag post until now. Because you do 2 tests, you get 2 different IQs. And for me, one was higher than the other. But here's the thing, the one with the higher IQ put me only in the top 4% of the population. But my lower IQ score was the better one, scraping the top 2%, making me just smart enough to earn a place in Mensa, as the idiot of Mensa. I don't think I have that puzzle book anymore, but I remember reading it again when I was a bit older, maybe 17 or 18, and the puzzles seemed fairly doable provided you put a bit of time into them. So it was probably just my age holding me back. As I conclude this video, I'm getting the defensive urge to criticise Mensa or IQ scores, but instead I'll encourage you to do the Mensa test if you have even the tiniest interest in knowing what your IQ is. They say you won't get a different score if you redo the test, but I'd like to challenge that. I've even joked about returning to it to try and get the lowest IQ possible, saving that one for a rainy day. Whatever, it sure beats sitting around mindlessly clicking online.